not a great idea to, kind of rub your balls the other way. But yeah, so I mean, cognizant that we are standing in between the break, so we'll try to be very, very quick. We only have a 10-minute window here. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. So James Rogers and Sid Datta, they both have plenty of experience in terms of dealing with this topic. So I think a very quick introduction in terms of why we chose this topic in the first place, right? Interestingly, in the last day and a half, we've seen fraud and data quality coming up in multiple parameters. And I think I even saw this small little placard from ESOMA, which says that there's something that they're doing in terms of the framework, right? So it's extremely interesting to kind of see that it is still a hot topic, within the research world, right? So James, I think you've done a lot of work on this sector. So can I ask you, how or why did we land here in the first place?
I mean, look, we've only got a couple of minutes, so look, I think first of all, what I would say would be, I don't think this should be a surprise. And I think that, over time, because of changes in technology, changes in the way that we source panelists, okay, the demands of the industry for constantly striving towards bigger volumes, more efficient, faster, and unfortunately cheaper as well, that we've ultimately created this situation, okay? Technology plays a big part now in how we source, how we engage with respondents. Part of that is, moving away from a desktop environment, okay, obviously towards mobile. But ultimately, we've driven this situation. It has always been there. But I think what we've noticed over the last 6 to 9 months, and especially with the likes of ESOMA and others really bringing a voice and being a lot more transparent about it, that we are talking about it more. We see it a lot more. And it's finally now become a time where we actually have to tackle it. Okay?
Interesting. So do you concur with that?
I fully concur, but we have to be conscious here, and we talked a lot about empathy, and we also have to be conscious that anti-fraud ads are everywhere. It's plaguing our day-to-day life, right? It's not just an online research problem. It's a global economy problem. When you go to MRT or you go on the streets, you see anti-fraud ads there.
Correct.
And what led to this was a lot of mobile democratization, digital boom, COVID. They all led to this huge explosion where people were not prepared to deal with all the fraud. On top of it, we saw that post-COVID, malware attacks actually grew by 300%, more than 300%, which was staggering, right? We see that cybercrime is the third largest economy in the world now, right behind US and China. So these are some staggering numbers. So it's, we are a subset of the overall population. So that's where we are facing a lot of fraud, and obviously now with the global headwinds, fraud uptake has increased. But our endeavor, I feel, should be, we're going to have to live with it. But how can we make it difficult for fraudsters to attack and make it less lucrative for them, so that they go to more other profitable, industries or something, rather than just, being there. Yeah.
I know we don't have time, but I think that's an interesting point, because the pressures that we've put under this group of fraudsters, if we can call it that, has forced them to create a new way, okay, of making money, okay. In the old model, in an old proprietary model, we would see lots of people going after the incentives, okay? With the price pressures on CPIs coming down, that's become very, very difficult. So now we see the creation of these, bot or bot-like and hybrid panel companies that have legitimate panelists, but then also fake panelists and these survey farms, etc. So now they're creating real entities to actually get the whole CPI and not just the incentive. Okay, so I agree with my colleague here. Like this is not something that's going away. it is something, yes, that we have to be aware of and live with, but it's something that we can now, work together as an industry to combat it. Okay, part of that is on SMR, part of it is on us as technology companies to actually use what we have to combat it.
Well, there are many stakeholders who need to be involved in the process, right? I think, so there is this question about are genuine people answering surveys? There's incentives, there's obviously the technology side of things. There's also a question that is not in the scope of what we're discussing today, right? Are market research companies really that agile enough in terms of embracing technology, the right way, et cetera, right? So it's a very, very comprehensive piece, right? So I think with the lack of time, I don't think that we can kind of get into all that, right? But let's talk a bit about Asia. From an Asian context, do you think we are doing better versus the rest of the world? Because historically, most of the panels are much more bigger, in the Western Hemisphere. So is it because of the size of the panels? Are we doing any better? Or is it because of the complexity that APAC in itself as a market operates, right? Because too many languages, relatively smaller panels. What's your take on that? So do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So, I think as Asia, because online and others, we were late adopters and online boom came here a bit later than the Western world. What basically has happened that we have learned, from their mistakes. With the challenges which they faced, we are encountering them, we are anticipating them much better. Also, there was a very interesting point made that, a lot of Asian markets actually leapfrogged from fixed line internet to mobile.
Correct.
And so what we are ensuring to do in APAC is that are our surveys more compliant? Are they mobile friendly? And again, I'll come back to empathy, right? Are we making respondents suffer? So that they 30-minute, 40-minute long length of interview questionnaires, because that's just going to kill the industry, right? Because the people are not going to be interested. So you're only going to get bots then who are filling up your surveys. So that's what we don't want. Also, I think, I think technology plays a huge part here. And that's where, machine learning driven by AI is helping, so for example, in Kantar, we have a cube technology, which basically, maps out the data, does real-time intervention, which helps, in fraud prevention. So I think these are a few techniques which have been run at the industry as a whole. But I think another area is the regulation part, which James referred to, and that's where bodies like SMR and others play a huge part, because compliances have to be high.
Correct.
Right now, that, and regulation has to be there. I'm not saying overly regulate, we don't want to be a nanny state, but, it has to be, because you're dealing with PII here, right? People's personal information data, which can be, used inappropriately. And we have seen that. So that's why we have to be very sensitive about these things in APAC. And I think we have learned, and we are developing technology through AI.
So you're saying regulate the agencies who in turn can regulate the panelists?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay. James, your take on APAC?
Look, I think the comment around technology and being more mobile-centric in this region definitely plays a part, and we can see that, through, similar to obviously Kantar with Cubed. Obviously, Pure Spectrum has Pure Score, which looks at a respondent level, okay? And ultimately, we can tell very clearly the difference between, the quality or fraud that we see on a desktop versus a mobile. The fact of the matter is on a mobile, it's very difficult to switch between screens and open developer tools, et cetera, which is something very simple on a desktop and something that you can actually flag for, and we do. Okay, so look, that's one part of it. But I think also, and for a wider conversation is potentially looking at the complexity of the languages in this region.
Yep.
Okay, that is definitely, the majority of the fraud, and it may be tied to volume, et cetera,
right.
Is centered around the Western world, or at least English-speaking markets. Okay, it's very rare that we will sit here and talk about, well, we're looking at high levels of fraud in Japan or in Korea, et cetera. Whereas, if we're talking about, the US, or we're talking about India, or we're talking about Australia, these are easily, to be honest, easy markets to be able to scale, because if they can do one, then they can just move on to another one.
Which actually leads us to the last question, right? In summary, how do you basically see the future of this? Is it going to get really bad? Is it going to be something that can be controlled, with the likes of, obviously, the stuff that we referenced around SMR? creating some frameworks, and companies actually kind of getting extremely diligent about, where surveys need to be kind of where people need to be recruited, and surveys need to be administered and stuff like that. So, what's your take on that?
Absolutely. Look, I don't want to be kind of like doom. Look ahead into the future and see that. I think we've got more coming. Quite frankly, I think with AI-based, online-based translation tools and ChatGPT and everything that's happening, other languages are going to become a lot more accessible to do this. Okay. That being said, I think we're all now a lot more equipped to deal with this.
Yep.
Okay. There needs to be an understanding from agencies and those that we work with that this is a problem. Okay. That it is going to keep coming. Absolutely, SMR and industry bodies have their responsibility in this. We, as platforms, technology, solution providers, have our responsibility, but then also agencies as well. When they are the ones controlling the survey, are utilizing all of the tools at their disposal, okay, to make sure that they're catching what they can catch on their side.
Sure. Last 20 seconds, Sid.
Yeah, concur with everything what James said, but it has to be real time, right? Because that's where the data gets affected. Because people come to us to get good quality, high data, and if we are not doing real time, because a lot of the traditional checks have been like post-survey or something of that sort, which really doesn't help because the damage is already done. The client's confidence is shaken.
Already eroded, yeah.
Already eroded, so that's too late. So that's why you have to do real-time checks. As James mentioned, through AI or ChatGPT or machine learning, and that's where I think make it less lucrative. So that it don't tamper the data, because that's sacrosanct. Right?
Sure.
So that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Cool. I don't think we have time for questions, right? We're already over the time. So, but Lester, I remember what you said, right? You said, when you drink beer, you become a better panelist, right? But not everybody in the panel drinks, right? So that's also something, that one needs to consider. But hope this was useful. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to meet us outside. Any of us can actually answer additional questions on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
James, Sid, and thank you, Dynata, for the sponsorship.